Hello, and in this episode of the DownShift, join Swags, Huppy, Lockie, and myself, KT, as we review the Singapore Grand Prix. A race that was similar to last year. On the surface, it seemed to be boring, but if you dig a little bit deeper, there was a lot going on. Chaotic practices, qualifying upsets, race battles across the field, and a Constructors Champion crowned. All this and more.
So it's lights out.
Drop the clutch.
And let's get racing.
Hello and welcome to the DownShift as the team review the Singapore Grand Prix for 2025. Now, following on from our preview of the race, we actually had our partners suggest that we should have shared a little bit more of our experience of going to Singapore last year. But what they don't realise is we actually shared all that we could remember.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I said that we left on a plane from Melbourne and arrived back on a plane to Melbourne, and it was still cold. And that was as much as we remember of that trip, I think.
To be fair, Dan, that is a very accurate summary of the trip we took. So very accurate.
Uneventful. Yep.
What happens in Singapore
stays in Singapore. Yeah. Anyway,
we could have rehearsed that a bit better.
Is this the wolf pack? Is this the wolf pack now? Is that what we're calling ourselves?
But I think that's where we actually, and for those who are listening, we were on quarter one, so just outside of the pit exit, and we were hoping for a lot more action than we actually did see on that weekend. But in the grandstand, beautiful viewing, and I think a lot has to be said for the night race. Is I think Schwags, you were saying about the helicopter view that they were showing this year, seeing this lit up track, it is as brighter than daylight.
Like a neon, like one of those neon tube bar signs. It's just, it really stands out amongst the skyline. It was really nice to see.
So in a race that we saw George Russell deliver a dominant performance with his fifth career victory.
Fifth? I can't believe that. That's unbelievable. I would have thought he'd done more than that, but good on him.
Given the way he's been performing this year and last year, it was actually surprising. I thought he would have won more. He's been doing really well.
For a driver who I think is probably one of the most underrated drivers, for one of the top performing drivers on the grid, his first win was back in 22 in Brazil, but then it was only back in Australia and Vegas in 24, Canada this year, and now. And this was actually Mercedes' first win for the season.
And that's astounding too, considering they're sitting in second place. So they've really managed to consolidate really solidly the two performances of the points haul for both Kimi and George the whole season.
And that's the irony. You look at Piastri's career versus it, and he's had more wins than George.
9 in total.
I feel
already.
A bit for George because it's a timing thing, isn't it? Mercedes' dominance sort of ended. Max and Red Bull have been smashing it out of the park. But I mean, all we can say, I think, is that George has been getting the most out of that car this year. He's really been performing at a high level. So a deserved win on the weekend, I think. He qualified really well. It was a belter of a quali lap and got first place and never looked back.
I think at the end of that race, I could almost see Toto reaching for his checkbook just to sign and get George's signature on a contract. I felt like he was that much closer to actually going, George, mate, let's get this done. Let's sign a deal.
Yeah. I think every time George has a performance like that, he hops out of the car and looks over to Toto and goes, what else do you want me to do? Come on.
The price just goes up.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see the steady hand of George in a rocket that's going to be the Mercedes of next year.
Imagine.
Yeah. We'll see how they go.
Could be good.
So we saw McLaren clinch the back-to-back Constructors Championship, and we also saw Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri make contact in the opening lap, with Max holding off Norris for second place. And believe it or not, all 20 cars finishing the 62-lap event with no major incidents.
Not what I expected to happen at all.
No safety car. And what was it, 1 or 2 flashes of a yellow flag. It was a pretty, you could almost say pedestrian-like run through it. There was a couple of good midfield battles, but overall it wasn't that
it wasn't
exciting action.
It wasn't a lot of action. And even McLaren getting the Constructors title was pretty, there wasn't a huge celebration. It didn't look like, I don't know.
Zach was pretty happy.
Yeah, it depends if you're Oscar Piastri or not.
Oh, yeah.
You want to get into that now, do you?
Why not?
Let's start there, yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let's go. Nathan, how are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, initially, look, I felt bad for Oscar, but when you looked at the replay, especially from the top-down view, Oscar had gone to the outside of turn one. He'd given up that inside space, and the onboard from Lando, like we all would have done the same. Oscar would have done the same. You're going to chuck it in there. You got the inside position. He was side by side through turn two, the right-hander into the hairpin. He had the position. So, yes, he had a wobble. I don't think he intentionally meant to hit Oscar. In the post-race press, Lando was saying he might have Max backed him up a little bit or something. He might have bumped Max, but not intentional.
No might. He definitely bumped Max on the replay.
Not intentional, but if it was the other way around, yes, I'm an Oscar fan, but if it was the other way around, Lando would be bleating about it as well, a bit probably, but
more.
They weren't. I don't think they would have swapped the positions. Oscar would have kept the position. We all would have cheered him for doing what Lando did.
Okay, devil's advocate. What if it was Max that had hit the back of one car and then hit another car? Would it have a different connotation now in the terms of how people react to Max doing these sort of things? And would there be more of an uproar based on the fact that Max hit two cars?
No. Max has always been aggressive, and they know that, especially Max and Lando together. So it would come as no surprise. And if Max had done that to his teammate and he got told to swap positions, Max would never do that. Do you know what I mean? It's a different dynamic. It's a different dynamic. But the one thing it did highlight is we've been talking for the last few months about when are we going to see some more tension between the McLaren drivers? Is there something bubbling under the surface? Yes, well and truly. To listen to Oscar's comments after that, welcome to the finals, boys. Welcome to the finals.
Pretty sure the pot's boiling right now.
Now the constructors is under the belt. Now it's drivers.
That's it. Well, it's gloves off, isn't it? They both want to win the title. Neither of them can crash, so it's going to be very interesting.
No, they can both crash. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, both cars can crash out. It makes no difference to constructors.
No, I mean for the Drivers' Championship, neither of them can afford to have an incident.
In terms of that.
Yeah,
no.
So
I reckon there'll be an incident before the end of the season.
So, Zach, get out your checkbook because you're going to be paying for a little bit of damage. It could be Williams from last year.
Yeah, break everything.
To your point, Nathan, too, looking at that replay of that start, those first couple of corners, there was a pretty hefty gap down the side there on that inside line.
Massive.
For someone to go through. And Oscar, even I think turn two, they hadn't quite got to turn three yet, and Lando was coming around hot at the side. And
yeah,
I don't know, maybe Oscar didn't feel like he should, move across and cut him off. Maybe he was being a little bit too nice, or
it all happens so fast when you're inside the cockpit too. What do you do? You've got to pick a side. You've got to go for your choice.
Yeah, Lando's post-race interview, he said, I'm going to go back and I haven't looked at the footage yet. I'll go back and look at the footage and I'll see where I can do better. I think he was trying to placate the interviewers, but I don't think there's going to be much out of that anyway. I think you just got to have a go for it.
Yeah. I didn't read a lot of press overnight, but I wonder if some people are going to think Oscar's a bit of a complainer or starting to whine a little bit too much because of that incident. I don't know. He put himself in that position. That's what I thought. And yes, he got nudged by Lando, but he was on the outside of the corner. Lando didn't do anything illegal or underhanded to get up the inside. It was just a racing move that everyone would have taken. So, he shouldn't be complaining about it. And I think if he looked back today after all the red mist had cleared, he would have thought, I should have gone to the inside and defended the inside.
On the upside, it only cost him 3 points.
Exactly, and that's interesting too because there's now this complication of McLaren aren't so dominant anymore. It seems Red Bull, they're getting a lot out of that car. Mercedes had a belter of a race, and they put themselves right up the front. Ferraris still struggle; they just don't seem to be able to find that window. But yeah, it's tied up the front. Yeah, it really is.
We probably weren't really expecting great results from Mercedes at a hot track either, were we? They're not traditionally good in the heat.
Well, George actually said, he goes, if we sat down at the start of the season and picked the races that we'd struggle at, Singapore was the number one that they thought they'd struggle at based on the track and the temperature. And he goes, if you told me at the start of the year we would win this race, he goes, I would have said, no, you're kidding yourself. That's not going to happen in this car and in the way we've got it set up.
Yeah. But it seemed hooked up. And whether the track came to them, they made the right decisions with strategy. And we can talk about qualifying, but I think his quali lap, when you look at the onboard and the commitment that he put into that lap, and the second one, because he actually went 7,000s quicker again, was Verstappen-esque. It was a cracking lap.
And considering he had the crash the day before, in that corner,
He lost some
just
time.
enough to sort of rock his confidence a little bit, and he wasn't really sure why that happened, but yeah, to come back and do that,
Usually it's going too fast.
George.
And just so we don't get all ahead of ourselves, I would like to remind everyone, for the beauty of meteorology, who got the weather corrections, who get all the predictions right. That's why we've put the extra budget behind doing the weather now, because obviously that's coming through and we're getting those correct. So
the special effects from last episode were amazing.
Well, we're taking them off for this week because we'll have them for next week, but just hold your breath for those ones.
Gee, wait for Coda. Wow.
Mate, Marina Bay delivered. Don't worry about that. Not only did they, I think the FIA might have actually listened to my predictions, because they then enacted the heat protocols as well, because they realised it's going to be above 31 degrees, so the boys had to get the cool suits out as well. But you look, there was multiple red flags in the qualifying set. We had some crashes, and obviously the biggest surprise of all would have been Aston Martin. Fernando just peeling back the years and ripping that car around the track as well. Now, I believe there was 3 different drivers topping timesheets across FP1.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Fernando, Oscar, and then Max. So
and it was literally only 9/10 of a second separating the top 4 teams, if I understand. So it's was a massive setup for a good qualifying session. But anyway, you boys run through the free practice sessions, and we can talk about qualifying after that.
Yeah. Well, I think before we just get into FP1, FP2, FP3, we talk about Max being with a rocket underneath him for next year. You imagine Fernando with a rocket underneath him next year. And, Aston Martin is a team that's thrown bucket loads of cash at next year's cars. So it's going to be an exciting 2026.
Just to clarify, we said George would be the one with the rocket under him, not Max.
Oh, sorry, from George.
Unless there's something you know that we don't know. I mean, there was a rumoured meeting between Max and Toto, so...
Yeah, no,
not for next year.
And there's still no contract for George?
No.
Not for next year.
Anyway.
No. Oh, look, and I think that's where, everyone keeps banging on about the contract for George, and Toto both just pass it off. It's just a case of just some final bits and pieces in the background. Yeah, look. And you got to remember is Mercedes is not only George's employer, but also George's manager as well. So, I mean, from that regards, yeah, it's just got to be finalised.
Yeah, I think Crofty intimated the same on the broadcast, that it's a done deal. It's just a matter of time. So, yeah, I guess there's a bit of news around the paddock that it's going to happen.
Fait accompli.
And your point, Christian, to Alonso, he just didn't look like a, what is he, 40-odd-year-old? 44. Like 44-year-old in terms of motorsport, he's up there. But yeah, in terms of, 44-year-old, F1 driver, just moving a car around the track like he did and performing like he did, him next year in a good car.
And to be fair, if it doesn't go away, he swears like a 25-year-old too. So, he's really got the whole package.
Well, he just turned the radio off.
Yeah, he had probably some of the quotes of the week, quotes of the race on the radio broadcast.
I think to say he was unhappy at the end of that with Lewis, probably an understatement.
Yeah.
Classic Fernando for the weekend.
Old and grumpy.
Yeah. It was good to see him quick in a practice session, but the practice sessions, like we were about to talk about, were disrupted a fair bit with red flags and some accidents and crashes. So I think it was hard for some teams to get run plans together, and other teams seemed to work out well for them, and they found pace in the conditions.
Yeah, so we saw for FP1, Alex, who was probably the least lucky for the session, coming into the pits very early on in the session with both rear wheels on fire. And you could see that the smoke coming off the car with carbon fibre burning.
So that wasn't just from a hot lap?
It was a very hot lap. But I mean, even to the point where Williams then decided to back the car into the garage while it was still on fire, filling the entire garage with carbon fibre smoke, which, I mean, Alex was stuck in the car, rubbing his eyes. Yeah, just
it's good for cleaning your sinuses out.
So we moved into then FP2 highlights on Friday evening, under night conditions. So major crashes of George, his Mercedes, and Liam Lawson again having a bit of a stack both into the barriers. And I thought when George hit the wall, there was some fluid from the car, but watching the replay, it was just the barriers that were filled with water splashing up and over and dropping water on the track, because I think he wouldn't have been allowed to return to the pits if it had been engine fluid. But he did a really good job of holding that car or getting that car pretty straight on when he hit those barriers to sort of minimise any corner damage on that car to give him a chance to fix it up nicely.
Yeah, well, he sort of hesitated to go down the runoff area. It was too late, turned the other way, and I just hit it fairly square on, which is good for the car.
Because that caused a red flag, didn't it?
Yeah, I think that was a red flag, and Liam's was a red flag until they cleared the track. So it did interrupt a few people's runs.
Liam's was a nasty red flag because he was blocking pit entry, wasn't he, at that stage?
Yeah,
Around
and
that
then
corner.
cars were told they could go around over the pit exit entry line and get around him, and they got his car out of the way eventually.
And a bit of a blind corner there too, around that corner.
Yeah. And if you're pitting at speed, you'd come around fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Because the commentators were saying that because of that FP2 crash, none of the teams had been able to do a long run with fuel to then figure out the long-term strategies for the race. And they said about lap 30 or 35 into the race, that was as far as the cars had run for the weekend as a long-term strategy. They had no practice in the longer ones.
Doing some strategy on the fly. That's the thing. If a red flag happens, 3 or 4 laps into a stint, it's hard to sort of restart and have enough time to get out, do another out lap and go around again when they want to probably get back onto softs and do another quali effort after they make setup changes and things like that.
Can I ask you a question? Is Christian missing from everybody else's screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's running so smoothly without him, though. That's a joke.
He'll edit that out.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Well, then, you might as well cover FP3.
Right, yeah.
So moving on to FP3, I guess that was when we probably saw Max put his foot down a little bit and raised a few eyebrows, and Antonelli and Russell were also fast. So that's when, I don't know about you guys, but that's when I started to think, oh, here we go. This could be, we sort of went into the weekend thinking it would be McLaren who would probably come to the top again because of the nature of the circuit, but didn't look like they had much of an edge, and they were all pushing fairly hard. So, yeah.
Well, I think we spoke about that last week, and you sort of said, this isn't, this is McLaren's track. It won't be a good track for Red Bull necessarily because it's a street circuit, high downforce. And I think, but the week before at Baku was also a street circuit that Max obviously did quite well at. So, and then come FP3, it was like, you know what, he's going to be at the pointy end again, and he's got a good chance here. That car's set up well again.
Well, to be fair, we all thought Mercedes was going to be useless this weekend as well, and they turned around and dialed it in, and off they went. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was close, and it just shows I don't think McLaren has the big edge that they had at the start of the season. Everyone seems to have caught back up a bit, or McLaren maybe couldn't find the right setup this weekend, the right window. Like they were dominant, very quick last year as well, so sort of expected they'd do well.
Yeah, McLaren definitely don't have the edge. Like for the first few rounds, they were like, they were winning races by 35 odd seconds. So they were clearly in front, and then the last couple of races, Max has been, winning the races by 16, 15 seconds. So it's sort of been a bit of a shift.
Yeah, well, they were like a third of a track in front when they were finishing. It was actually quite boring to watch the first few because they were so far in front. So the field is well caught up.
Yeah, and then I guess we move on to qualifying.
Qualifying highlights, you have to say George Russell, absolute masterclass, delivered that, snagged a pole, 129.158. That was just watching the replay from the inside of the car. And I think you said before, Hubbie, was almost Max Verstappen-esque. It was just dial it in, car was on point, threw it into all the right turns. He had the power down at the right times. And it was a beautiful lap to watch when he did it. And I don't honestly think that any of us are expecting George to have pole. And you can see that based on our predictions from last week as well. It was just a fantastic drive to watch. And then, Verstappen come through second then, whether or not he was going to get through for the next part of that based on a certain driver holding him up on the track, apparently.
Lando shaking fist out the window.
Yeah. So, that was good. And then Piastri obviously coming through to snag the third spot there as well. That was actually quite good as well. But again, the whole, I think, top 10 was 0.7.
Big gap, actually, I thought. Like, for Oscar to be nearly 4 tenths behind pole and Max 2 tenths behind, that's a big gap. Like, George...
Yeah, like...
Great lap. Like
0.7 in the top 10.
Yeah.
And you've got...
Yeah, so that means it's 0.3 from 3 to 10.
Yeah.
That's
exactly. Yeah. So, again, Max wasn't happy with... Well, he thought he got balked a bit by Lando, who was notified that Max was coming up behind him and seemed to slow down a little bit too much, perhaps, or a bit early, according to Max, and got in the way of his lap a little bit.
Did it upset his aero? Because he did noticeably slow down in that last bit, but I'm sort of like, I don't know, the car wasn't in the way, but he could have, I feel like he could have still powered through, but...
even 1.5, 2 seconds up the road, you get an aero wash effect. So it'll hurt you into corners. And he still had the penultimate corner and then that last series, which is the really fast left-handers, around where the pit entry is, to do. And he bailed out. Now, whether or not he was on a great or better lap, I don't know. But he bailed and waved his arm out the window at Lando and said in the press conference, will be remembered. So he wasn't happy.
Do we think he remembered that for the whole race as well? I get the feeling he did remember that.
He did a pretty good job remembering, because he kept Lando behind for about 20.
He did a great job defending there, and Lando just couldn't get the job done on him. He had his chances. He got close, got within DRS, and there wasn't a lot going on for overtaking up the front end of the field.
No. But anyway, I mean, quali finished up, and before the race started, we also heard that Williams had more drama. So not only smoking, burning brakes, but they had a technical issue with their DRS slot gap. Has to be measured. It's got to be no more than 85 millimeters, I think, in height, that gap. And according to James Vowles, at the very end, it was very slightly more than 85 millimeters. So they got put to the back of the grid, which was really disappointing for them. But yeah.
Was that to do with the sparkle sticker on the back? Did that upset the height of the wing?
It could have, yeah. I don't know. Maybe the sparkle sticker gave it a bit of extra.
They might have made it a little bit too big to get too much advantage.
Unicorn juice on the wing, and it's too big.
Anyway, moving right along.
Hello. Welcome to the DownShift. All right, and I'm back after a power failure at DownShift HQ. Who knows what happened? So getting out of the darkness.
Pay your bill, mate. That's what it is. You got to pay your bill.
Hang on. So from pitch black to the dazzling floodlights of Marina Bay, we saw George Russell, who orchestrated a flawless masterclass at the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix, from a shock pole to a P1 finish. It was the first win for Mercedes for the season, as we just discussed. And while holding off a charging Max Verstappen in second, we also saw the favoured Lando Norris, who finished in third, who edged out Oscar Piastri into P4.
Wait, did you just say edged? You edged him out. Come on, another controversial tangle between teammates under Papaya rules, KT. Seem to recall you made a bold statement after the radio conversation between Piastri and his race engineer on that one.
You're right, Schwags. And look, I'm going to hate myself for this, because I'm actually probably going to make it a tough job for me tonight in editing this package, because, my bold statement was, if McLaren keep up this clown show, come 2026, I'm going to potentially rip off the Papaya. I'm going to switch teams, because I've just absolutely had enough of it.
Come to Audi with me. Come to Audi with me.
This is an absolute joke. From the perspective of at the start of the race, and as we discussed, is between Lando and Oscar, race incident, whatever. But as Oscar said, come on, you're going to miss the bump with someone else by actually running into your teammate. That's enough. And we saw that Oscar was getting quite frustrated on the radio, and then you had Tom going, look, we're not going to look at it now. We can review it after the race. Absolute BS. So if we look in regards to pit stop blunders, we can go back to Baku and, in regards to what was happening there. And I'm going to throw a chart up here, and because everyone loves a
graph.
Another graph. So, but when you look at it, and this is where, if I look at from the perspective of Zach Brown going, hey, it's Papaya rules, the boys are open to race, do whatever you want, but hang on, we've got to be fair. When we go back, I've actually gone back to every single pit stop for the entire season. And you'll actually see here in the chart that based on that, for every race for this season, as we look at the ebb and flow of the pit stops, we actually see that Oscar Piastri has had an average time in pit of 3.4 seconds. Lando Norris has had an average time in pits of 3.2 seconds. So Lando Norris has been 16% better off than Piastri in regards to the pit stop timings. And if we tally up the difference in pit stops, and I've deliberately taken only the pit stops where Lando and Oscar have had the same number of pit stops, McLaren owes Oscar Piastri 6.33 seconds. So, this may sound stupid.
bitter about this at all, or are you okay?
So-
I'm
Just out of
ropeable.
curiosity.
I'm furious. I'm
Oh,
even
right,
more
okay.
furious than happy.
Yeah, he looks
I'm-
pretty cut up in the.
I'm not drawing quite as long a bow as Christian is here with the conspiracy theories around pit stops.
But as I said, this may sound stupid, but Zach Brown, if you're going to talk about fairness, and then you're going to turn the other cheek and say the drivers are free to race, then strap in for this form of analysis, not only from the downshift, you're going to see it from a whole bunch of other pundits around the.
Nonetheless, though, it did clinch them back-to-back constructors' titles. So they've got to be happy with that part. And I mean, you come off there, the race finished, and Zach was like a Cheshire cat, smiling, hugging people, shaking their hands. Like he was like a proud parent that he's just given birth. Him and Andrea were more than happy walking around shaking everybody's hands. It was like they were in a presidential race. Kiss the baby, shake the hand. Kiss the baby, shake the hand. Like
he's quite happily taking the check from the Formula One of $150 million. But I think this is where we will see. I would love to be a fly on the wall as Webber and Piastri review this race, and we will see a very different strategy for the next 6 races.
Yeah, gloves are off.
I wonder in the post-race briefing whether Oscar came in with a big glass of water and just slammed it down on the table in front of him. Webber-esque, multi-21. We'll see.
Yes.
We'll see.
Yeah, look, and you heard from Oscar. I mean, he was just deflated in regards to it. It was lap 40 where Tom Stellard had got on the radio and said, look, we now think that we should take a safety car for a soft tyre. Just let me know if you strongly disagree. And Piastri just came back and said, I don't know what to do right now. Do whatever you think's best. He just went, stuff it.
Well, he was basically stuck there in the train, wasn't he?
Yeah, by that stage of the race, Oscar wasn't. He was still driving well, but he wasn't. Oh, look, he was catching Lando for a bit. Not consistently though, not enough. So he wasn't really. Maybe he's just
saving his
underwhelmed by
tyres.
what the car was getting out of the car. Yeah,
There was a big error.
Go on.
To be
Perfect.
fair, it was quite hard to pick up on that, and it was obviously it was the quality of the race we were watching. Have you got any opinions on the race we were watching and how the telecast came across to us all?
Don't get me started again on the Formula One broadcast this year.
Sorry,
It's just been
do we have
atrocious.
Just before you do rant, do we have a limit of rants per episode, or what's the deal?
No,
there?
we've got no disclaimers.
No, it's
nothing at the top
limitless.
of the file.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is
All right. Well,
this is the last rant. This is the last rant. It frustrates me so much that whoever is directing the TV coverage, and it's not Sky, it's fed out to everyone. So everyone gets the same footage. We cut to, now don't get me wrong, I don't mind getting a shot every now and again of drivers' girlfriends. There's Rebecca Donaldson, model and partner. There's the other ones. We don't need to see them 5 times during a race. Like, for those who want to watch the racing, show us the racing. Like, I don't know how many overtakes they missed and battles they missed during this event. It was just, I don't know. It was atrocious. Have you
I
got
can
to
tell
count
you
what
right now, I think in the first 2 minutes of the race, the actual coverage missed 5 overtakes. Not shown them.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And,
5
and
in 2
didn't go
minutes.
back to give us good replays on half of them either.
Or
We got
you're watching the
hardly-
main screen and they're following the train, and in the little box on the corner, they show the overtake, and you're like, I would have rather been watching the overtake, and you put the train that you're watching up to the side.
And there was action towards the end of the race that they seemingly nearly completely missed. We only found out about after the race. Like, there's a tight pack of cars that were battling. There was brake issues. There was all this stuff was missed. George is like miles up the road. Yeah, okay, let's get a shot of him going past the finishing line. Woohoo, well done, Mercedes. But like, follow the rest of the action because the race hasn't finished until everyone crosses that line. It was really ordinary.
And like they do it, it's not a modern feature for them to be able to do like a split screen or have even, split the screen into 3 and have, a couple of things going on. They do the little one at the side, which is okay if there's not much going on and you can see that. But yeah, look, I tend to agree. Like, there's elements of that broadcast that are just like, I wanted to see something else. I mean, I don't know whether Sky Sports are trying to encourage using their subscription because you can click on the driver and follow their action and, scan the QR code and, go into in-car
That's all
footage.
just static feed stuff. I don't think so.
To be
And I
fair,
mean, look,
though, they
if you-
couldn't exactly cut to Alonso, though, because he was not having a family-friendly conversation at the end of the race. So that would not have been aired anyway.
And look, I agree, Nathan. If you want to see, pictures of the drivers' girlfriends and partners, then there's a certain other, YouTuber that you can get all that from.
Yeah. Yep. there's photographers who cover this stuff at the event, so you can go and search for the models. That's fine, but one shot per event is fine. We don't need to cross back to Rebecca Donaldson to see her stern look 3 or 4 times a race. Like, I don't need it. I'd rather see overtake.
Lawson's girlfriend looked rather concerned at some point. I think he must have.
It's because he crashed into the wall.
Someone or something.
They all look concerned. None of their partners seem excited to be there.
No.
It's like a publicity exercise that they've been dragged along to.
It's because it's really hot. Do you know how hot it is over there? Like, come on.
I don't know. I'll ask our weather guy.
Anyway, there's plenty of motorsport around the world that has better direction and coverage. Like V8 Supercars locally does a great job. You know, it's possible to cover races really well. And Formula One is just not doing a good enough job this year.
As we get into next year, and this is where it's rumoured that Apple has outbid ESPN for the American rights for the coverage of the Formula One for apparently $150 million annually. It would be really interesting to see how Apple will actually take the coverage of this and whether or not we get to see any of this as well. But as to whether or not that goes on to other regions. But yeah, there's so much.
Does that mean I have to buy an iPhone in order to watch the race now?
No. See, Formula One controls the footage. So they're the ones who will provide everyone the same feed. So Apple is just going to have the same feed that ESPN had.
Yeah, but it's how you use it. And I mean, this is the thing, is they've all got the feeds coming through. I mean, you know, we look at it in regards to, you know, the telemetry and everything. It's all fed out by F1, but it's how you package it. It's how you use it and how you go through that. So with these broadcasters, they're the ones who are then deciding what goes where, how it's shown, etc. So
yeah, but they get the finished product. Like, so what you see on Sky is the same as what you see on Fox. It's the same as what you see on ESPN. That's it. So Formula One, cut it, change cameras. It's their call. So the commentators are just commentating over the top of it. They have no input into what's shown unless the director is listening to their commentary or getting some input from someone.
Yeah, because I think I was watching one of the practice sessions or qualifying with my wife, and at one stage the commentators were talking about something going on, and we're looking at pictures of the crowd right now. We're not even no idea what you're showing us now because it's nothing.
That's why we have comments like the commentators might be saying, "Oh, we'll hopefully we stay on board for this whole lap, and we can." Oh no, we're not. You know, they'll cut away. They're not in control of that footage. It's not like Sky is getting 6 different camera feeds and they can cut between them. They're getting the single final cut live.
So Stefano Domenicali, who is obviously listening to this podcast, try harder, be better, and do better in regards to the feed that's coming through to the broadcasters.
Do we have his email address?
Please.
Maybe we could send him an email.
And send your cease and desist letter to Christian at the DownShift.
We'll just respond back to that letter we got last week after KT's previous rant.
If you don't like being spoken sternly to by an Aussie,
5 rants.
Yeah.
Just send the same letter you send to Mark Webber.
Enough ranting. Enough ranting. Let's move along.
So in regards to the race, any other dramas that anyone wanted to call out? I know, Lockie, you were talking about Fernando in true Fernando Alonso style.
Well, because, he was complaining about Lewis Hamilton. Obviously, Lewis was going off the track limits because, to be fair, he had no brakes.
He lost his brakes, basically. He was driving an unsafe car, really.
Correct, which, should he have pulled over? Should he not have? That's another question entirely. But the fact he exceeded track limits on, 7 occasions, I think it was, that he couldn't pull it up and things like that. So
I think it's fair to say Alonso what he probably should have pulled over.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, Alonso will be happy because he got the place anyway. So he came 7th overall anyway. But yeah, he was very, very much unhappy with the fact that Hamilton was still out there driving and he was just all over the track, couldn't pull it up, go off the side, all that sort of stuff. So,
well, really, I mean, for the whole race, everything was coming up Fernando. I mean, jumped to position with Lewis being knocked back due to a 5-second penalty, got driver of the day, and I would arguably say was the best radio chatter for the entire race.
And still had the best hair at the end of the day.
And the thickest neck on the grid.
Yeah, the best comment of the night was when Alonso's engineer said to him, 34 laps to go, and he responded, "If you talk to me every single lap, I'm going to turn my radio off." Oh, champagne comedy from Alonso. That was good.
I think before that, he was second in the voting poll for driver of the day, and he probably just jumped up after that.
Jumped to first. Yeah,
everyone's going, "Yeah, good job, Fernando."
Well, I know that's when we voted, so yeah.
With Hamilton's brake problems, did Leclerc also have brake issues? I thought I heard, or was that just isolated to Lewis?
No, because Leclerc ended up passing him and kept going, so he had nothing. I think because Lewis was pushing that hard.
Well, probably because it couldn't
he
stop.
just cooked him.
Charles was 2 positions ahead of Lewis, obviously, yeah, as Lewis gets bumped back, but didn't seem to have an issue. So as we get into the results of the race, we saw that with this, we had George Russell who took first, followed by Max Verstappen, and then Lando Norris with Oscar Piastri in fourth. McLaren, as we said, has tied up the Constructors Championship, and so from that regards, Zach and team take away a cool $150+ million, whatever it might end up being, also with the contribution from Cadillac going into 2026. But where the real heat is in the Drivers' Championship. And so we saw Oscar Piastri, who lost 3 points to his teammate Lando Norris, being 366 to 314, so a 22-point gap between the two. And Verstappen, who grabbed 18 points, which brought him 3 points closer to Lando and 6 points closer to Oscar. So I'll put the graph up here that we had actually last week. We're talking about where the drivers are. And so as you can see here, you've seen a bit of a bump there for Max, Lando and Oscar, sort of keeping that same trajectory. But then if we extrapolate that out to the end of the season using the historical analysis, again, this is where this puts Max potentially in second place, pipping Lando. Again, here we're seeing that he is now probably about 8 points away from Oscar for the end of the season.
If he wins every race remaining.
After this weekend, he can't win, can he? He had to win every race last week, didn't he?
I believe so, but it depends on DNS. Like if the McLarens have some run-ins or both cars fail to finish, that could impact things as well. But I mean, look, regardless, he's going to basically have to win or place second every single race from now until the end of the season, which is not beyond the realms of possibility based on.
I think Max says challenge accepted.
So nothing to lose. You've got nothing to lose.
Why not?
It'll be. I know the gap's dropped to 22 points between Oscar and Lando, which is still nearly a race win. So it's still not a bad buffer for Oscar. But, yeah, I mean, he'll definitely want to come back and have a strong coda. It'll be interesting to see whether McLaren is one of the stronger cars there. We'll see.
Well, I mean, if you look at it like that and you talk about gaps closing, if you want to talk about gaps closing, Happy, you might want to go to your predictions from the weekend.
Oh my God!
What work. Well, let's just jump right into it. So, look, we're at the pointy end of the season where every point counts, and as we go to the downshift predictions, I had to laugh because as I updated this morning, I remembered I was actually cheering for Norris to take over Verstappen, forgetting that I'd actually put Verstappen in second. So as we put up the leaderboard here on the screen, we now have a tie for first place with Huppy and myself sitting there at 37 points apiece, with Lockie coming in 34 and Schwag sitting at 17. So I was very, very happy to say that I took another 3 points out of last night's race.
Yeah, so it's making it more interesting. We've only got 6 rounds to go, so it's yeah.
I better start taking this seriously now and tip properly then. God.
Stop mucking around.
Christian's extrapolated out his results for the coming rounds of the downshift leaderboard as well. And you're going to come in second, Nath, I hate to tell you.
Dan, I reckon there's a fair chance, Dan, you're going to come in fourth.
No, if Dan wins every round and KT and I bomb out, he's going to come through for the win.
Charles Leclerc, I'm coming. Hang on, he's not coming either. No, don't worry.
No, computer says no.
So, look, given that it is a non-race weekend this weekend, only one episode for this week. Next weekend, we head stateside where we'll be kicking off with Coda, followed by Mexico, and then Vegas, baby!
So the big question is, will Oscar hold on to the Drivers' World Championship in the remaining 6 races?
Or will Max knock Lando down a rung?
And will Mercedes be able to close the door on Ferrari?
For all this riveting commentary and more, be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tune in for the fierce downshift predictions battle, and we'll see you on the next lap.